Hi everyone, welcome to After Class with Ballet for All,
a podcast by two passionate adult ballerinas about all things adult ballet related.
and some random thoughts in between.
We're so glad you're here.
So grab your water bottle
Or a cup of coffee.
and join us for a quick chat after class.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Hello, Miss Elena, how are you?
Hello, Hannah. Really good. How are you feeling after what you did to your toe? Explain to everyone what happened to your toe.
So we just finished group class and my point private, and I was telling Miss Elena that I was trying to get myself a pedicure yesterday, and I accidentally stabbed myself up under my toenail, and it is making point so much more painful than it already is, which is awesome because I had just been thinking to myself, wow, my feet must be getting used to point. It's not hurting as bad anymore. And then I maimed my toenail. So this is going to be a really fun week for dance. I can already tell.
The interesting thing is, I was going to tell you, imagine if you have to go the whole week, like to classes an entire week. And then I actually thought, I'm like, well, she actually goes to ballet classes the entire week.
Yes.
So you're going to be so much pain.
Yes. Last week, I did 8 classes in 7 days. I was exhausted this weekend. I don't know what. I just was on a roll last week and I kind of overbooked myself, overcommitted. I was like, yeah, I'll take that class. Yeah, I'll do that class. And then by yesterday, which is Sunday, I was just dead. Gosh.
Of course, I can imagine. You have to be careful. Like, I totally understand that you love me, you love your other ballet teacher. That's okay. You need to rest. You need to have a break. So today's episode is going to be about the fundamentals of turning. Now, we understand that we all have two sides, and we are not meant to be biased, whether one side is better than the other one, but in reality, we all have the best side and the not that good side. But we are going to help you today to get over that fear of turning. We're going to give you a few fundamental notes or tips that are going to help you just really improve those turns. Yeah?
This episode I'm excited for because I think this is a really good kind of summation of the key points for turns. There's a lot of different things to think about, which we'll get into, but these are really the core principles that if you can get these locked in, really get consistent on these, you will definitely notice improvement in your turns. So let's jump right into it. So what do you think is a good place to start as one of the fundamentals of building a good turn?
I will go straight to body alignment. And that's the fundamental of anything in ballet, but very, very specific to turn. Within body alignment, we will have first the upright positioning, always having that chest diagonal forward in front of you and up, never letting that chest to drop down. So really proud chest. Within that, we then can go to core engagement. So the core is right in the center of the body for a reason. So you said, as soon as you think you are like a little bit wobbly, and even in a scenario, not a turn, engage your core. So can you imagine if within a turn, you really make sure that you're engaging your core, your abs, and really, it's not contracting. It's the difference in between contracting and engaging. But if you make sure that you focus a little bit on that within the turn, it's just going to make more stable and more balanced that turn, whatever type of turn we're doing. What else could be involved into that body alignment, Hannah? Which is, because what I like about all these points is I'm taking them from the point of view of the teacher, but you, Hannah, taking them from the point of view of the first-hand learner, right?
Yeah, something I think of when I'm generally thinking of alignment is just that idea of staying stacked, especially if you're doing a turn that involves being in passe on one leg, making sure that when you're lifting into passe that it's not totally throwing off your alignment between your ankle, your hips, and your shoulders, because it's really easy. Obviously, we tend to want to compensate for picking up a leg and throwing off that alignment, but staying really strong and pulled up through the supporting side and keeping the alignment between the shoulders, hips, and ankles is really going to give you the best placement to stay sustained in a turn, right?
And that's right. Something else within that body alignment would be the arms placement and arms coordination. Don't turn with your arms open. Bring them in front of you or up in fifth. Most of the time, as a beginner, you're going to have arms on first position in front of you. Round arms, really engaging, chest up and engaging your core. And that would be a perfect body alignment to then move on to the next point. I think the next point will be having a very strong footwork, supporting leg. All that is going to be very fundamental. What do we mean by footwork? We're talking about high releves, a strong ankle, strengthening that leg. If you believe that you're as stretched as you can go, then start elongating from the top of the knee all the way to your hips, and then keep growing tall and elongating all the way to the roof. So that's what we talk about, footwork. What do you think, Hannah? What comes to mind when you think about footwork related to pirouettes or turns?
Yeah, I think when you're thinking about that aspect of turns, I think the weak point is potentially going to be different for everybody. You know, some people have naturally stronger ankles and weaker calves, or strong calves, weaker ankles. So I think it's important to know what areas are weaker so that you can be working on strengthening them. Like, I know that for me, my calves are a lot of times the fastest thing to fatigue. And that is really difficult for me in turns, because if your calves are kind of giving out on you, you're not going to be able to stay up in a high releve because your calves are quitting. And so knowing what parts are weak so that you can be working on those, because it really is, it's like little building blocks all the way up your body. It's like your ankle is one building block, your calf is the next building block, you know, it kind of moves all the way up. But that lower, you know, calves and down, your ankles, that's all doing so much work, you know, even your Achilles and all of that. So yeah, those are all critical body parts that are all working together to be able to give you the high releve, the strength to stay up on a high releve, which obviously the more turns you want to do, the longer you need to be able to stay up on a high releve. So if your goal is to be able to do, you know, doubles, triples at some point, whether it's pirouettes, any turns, you really need to build that strength in your ankle and your calves to be able to sustain being up in a high releve. So yeah, those are all like the pieces that have to come together.
Exactly. So far we've talked about body alignment. We are focusing on the footwork, that really supporting, like really strong, elongating ankle, calf, knees. So now after all that, I will say that will be a perfect body alignment, because we already talked even on the entire building blocks that have to come together. After we have that, we have a great foundation there. We need to focus on that turnout. Because at the end of the day, we are going to be turning. We're going to be turning over our axis. And ballet is really important to maintain the turnout as we turn it. And sometimes if we think about it, let's go to a pirouette and the done. It is not just about maintaining that flat passe or that open hip. We need to focus on that supporting legs, turnout, and underwards as well. If we think about it's and the done, so we're going to turn inwards, we have to push supporting legs heel forward. The more you push that heel forward, the more consistency you're going to have in your pirouette, and also the more supporting leg, a stronger supporting leg and a stronger balance you will have. So it's not just the actioning leg, but also that supporting legs turnout and unders.
Yeah, that's such an easy one to forget, because there's so many other things running through your mind that turn out. That's a huge one that can just kind of fly out of our brains. I know even from doing just a pirouette from fourth, the more you have that heel turned out, you know, on your, what's going to be your standing leg, it really helps you I almost think of it sometimes of like, it's kind of helping you to like wind up for the turn, because you're creating that oppositional push, you know, by maintaining your turnout, keeping it really forward, so that when you go up to do your pirouette, you're kind of have already built that resistance to then go into the turn. But it's really common for people to let that heel slip back into a parallel position before they turn, and then you've lost kind of that counter pull that can really help you whip around. So I think that's a really common one, is to lose turnout, but it's definitely so important.
which again facilitates good body alignment. So
Mhm.
all of them at the end are mixed, are joined, are all one big function, right? So after we talk about the turnout, we need to talk about the most important thing, especially for multiple turns. So let's do the chaînés, the piquets of the news, and pirouettes. It's spotting. Sometimes we know that we have to spot, but when we do a simple pirouette, it's so easy to underestimate it. But we need to keep that spot as you do one simple pirouette. It is weird to understand what I'm trying to explain because we do not whip the head from one pirouette. It is not necessary, but we still need to keep that spot, that one point in front of you where you're going to stay looking at it as you turn around. Now, when you do the multiples, it becomes way more important to have the whip, whip, whip of that head. Yeah?
Yeah. We were just talking about this earlier, even in my my private lesson, how with one turn, I think this is probably, I mean, you would know more than me from teaching, but it seems like it's probably more common when you're doing a single pirouette that people want to over whip it than under do it. You know, it's like we always tend to think that a single turn requires more force than it actually does. And so to kind of get that really controlled single that you see more advanced dancers do, if you look, they're not actually really putting that much force into their turn or their spot. Like you said, the head's not like doing this crazy fast whip. So yeah, I think it's like a different kind of challenge to learn how to slow it down and control it a little bit more for a single and just bring your head around cleanly instead of trying to whip it.
True. It is hard because we insist a lot in our classes to just do one simple pirouette and stay in control up. That should be easier than doing multiples, but in reality, it's harder than doing multiple or trying multiple pirouettes. When you just try to do one with control, still you don't have that quick, dynamic, fast whip of the head. However, you do need to stay that head and stay until the end and arrive first to that point, even though it's just a simple pirouette. You always look at where you're going or where you're going to finish. That's where your spot is going to be. And really acknowledge that spot and really show it, really present it, yeah? So that's really, really important. And another thing that is really essential for when we are learning to do turns is the progression, the gradual progression of turns. You are not born straight to running and going to these marathon runs. You slowly start lifting your head, turning over your back, turning over your belly. That's exactly what is going to happen with your pirouettes.
It's a much slower progression, and I'm sure it varies from person to person. I feel like for me personally, my journey of turning, especially turns on one leg, has been a much slower process than I personally would have liked. But I think that that's just the reality of learning to do something that is kind of fundamentally unnatural to our bodies. Like our bodies naturally want to protect themselves and not do things that make them feel off balance or, you know, just like they're not in control. And so I think it's just taken a really long time. And so much of what I've had to just continually come back to is breaking down turns into their smaller parts. Like I feel like at this point I'm like I should be doing doubles, but in reality like I still have to every week just work on doing plie, passe releve, plie, passe releve, plie, passe releve into a quarter turn, then a half turn, then a full turn. And so it's, I think what I would want to say to encourage people is you're not alone if you're feeling very frustrated by the speed of your progress when it comes to turns. That's something that I've heard a lot just from fellow adult dancers is people just feeling like, why the heck is it taking me a year, 2 years, whatever, to be able to do a clean single turn? And it's like, it's really hard. Like I think that's the only thing I can say is like, it's hard and it's unnatural. So our bodies resist it in some way, I think.
It is taking the time to trust the process.
And I think what you were saying a minute ago too is this has just been so true of my own journey with turns, is taking the time to experiment. You know, sometimes for you, what what the issue is might be totally different from someone else. You know, someone else, it might be because they're not doing the right thing with their arms. But for you, it might be that you're sinking in your supporting hip or something like that. And so I think it's so important to take time outside of class to experiment with your turns with what works for you. Because everyone, even just like the shape of our bodies, and, you know, there's so many different things that are going to be a variable in turns. And it's like, yes, there are fundamental things that are true for everybody, but where you're kind of missing it, if you feel like you're struggling with your turns, is probably not going to be the same as where I'm missing it or someone else is. So taking that time to just, in a space that you're comfortable in, just trying different things that you're like, oh, if I totally botch it and I fall on my turn, who cares? I'm just trying something different to see if it feels better, is a really, really valuable thing to do.
True. It's just experimenting with what's going on with you. And that will connect to the next point, which is have a checklist. It's just a mental quick checklist that you will have in 1 second as you're doing pirouettes. So you're going to do your first pirouette and have a quick checklist of what did you really think of? Oh, did I think of pulling up, elongating, knee back, shoulder back, and did I look at the spot? Quick. Okay, check. Oh, no, I didn't do this. So next time you do your pirouette, have a quick checklist. Like I keep saying all the time when we are in class, okay, quick checklist. Remember, you have to spot, you have to pull up, you have to open your knee, you have to push that supporting leg, and you have to elongate. We always do that quick checklist. And I know that is just that mindset fully changing to be present within the exercise in the moment.
Another thing too, that like just popped in my brain, but I think is so helpful, is filming yourself and watching what you're doing on camera. Because I think there's a lot of this happens all the time in classes where I totally think that I'm doing something correctly, or I'm like, I'm not, you know, over rotating my torso, or I'm not, like, I'm in a high releve. And then I go back and I watch the video and I'm like, oh, clarity.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it is sometimes a little bit hard and a little bit humbling to watch yourself on video. But I think that's like the best way to really be honest with yourself about what might be happening, because we can think things feel a certain way and be completely off base with, like, I know there's been times where I've watched myself turning and I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea I was doing that weird thing that I'm doing until I saw myself do it on camera. And like, it's really helpful. So it's hard, but it's helpful.
With a quick camera, your phone, and record yourself, and you might even surprise yourself saying, oh, wow, I actually was in a really high releve, like the teacher said, or whatever. Wow, that's good. So it's not just to criticize yourself, but to support yourself as well.
It's true. I think my mind automatically goes to like everything I'm doing wrong, but that's a good point too. Sometimes you will surprise yourself. Sometimes it's good to have yourself on video because you might be like, oh, wow, I just caught a really good turn. That's fun too. I've had a couple of those moments where I'm like, wow, I was really glad I got that on camera. Filming yourself is such a great tool for improving your turns, for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Something else I will say about turns in general, which is really important, and I will say as important as anything else, is the breathing. And you will like, oh, I breathe. But you will remember this from all of my YouTube classes. I'm always reminding you. And I receive sometimes some comments saying, oh, thank you so much for reminding me to breathe during the exercises. Breathing is good, but when you are doing turns, there is this special breathing and holding your breath in a specific moment. I actually have a student, she's 16 years old, and it's funny because she doesn't realize that she's doing it, but it's helping her with her pirouettes so much. She's doing double pirouettes, and at the end of double, she just hold her breath for like that second and just give her that elongation, and she finished with such a control every time. And I just had to record her and show her. And it was so funny because she does the final elongation, breathing control, and then down. So that is important, having the control of your breathing within the turns.
Interesting. It makes sense when you think about it, because in holding your breath, you're kind of almost mimicking that feeling of staying lifted that you want to maintain, while you're finishing a turn, and then holding yourself before you're lowering yourself with control. Another thing too, I think, is something I would want to encourage people, because I personally have experienced this, is I do think, and I don't know if you would agree with this or not, like I think that there is a point where you can over practice your turns. And like I think a lot of us that are on the journey have probably had those days where you just keep trying a specific turn, and maybe it's not even a turn, maybe it's just a step in general, and you feel like you're just getting worse the more you do it. That's a real thing. That's a real thing.
I think it happens.
You probably are getting worse, and it's okay to stop.
Yeah.
And walk away from it for that day.
Yeah. From the point of view as a teacher, why you have to stop. So Hannah's going to give you the point of view of the student, but the teacher is, you're going to create bad habits. Mm-hmm. So just stop. If you can't do your double pirouettes and you just keep jumping, and this time is because you were back, the next time is because your arm wasn't there, the second time you didn't get in a high releve, the fourth time, and so on, so on. Everything keeps changing. It's just creating bad habits. So for the teacher, stop. Now for yourself, Hannah, why would you stop doing it? Like, what do you feel?
I think for me, like I know this about myself, where, I mean, I'm a type A person in general, so this is just in life something that I have to be mindful of, is that my frustration can escalate very quickly. And so I think I hit a point sometimes where you're getting so frustrated that you're basically like self-destructing. like you said, you're making bad habits, but you're also just mentally, you're getting in a mindset to where it's just not going to be helpful.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, I have to just take note of when I've hit that place of like, you know what, anything that comes after this is just not going to be good practice, and it's not going to be beneficial. And I think too with turns, like sometimes if you just keep on going, it's like you're getting dizzy, you're getting fatigued, you're getting irritated. Like just know when to step away.
That's true.
Yeah, like know when to just step away and leave it for another day. Bad training days are a real thing. So I think, it's funny because I've even just on social media from following professional dancers even, it's like you see them post things about bad turning days. And I'm like, oh, thank God. Like it's not just me. Consistency develops over time, like you're averaging, hopefully gets better.
But practice, but just enough practice. No,
yeah,
they overdoing it.
Yeah.
And Hannah, this that we all have bad days or turns and all that. That's connected to something that you were researching.
Yeah.
Which is when we are in our periods. What was your experience? Because this is actually something that you saw on the social media.
Yeah.
Oh, so I'm not alone.
No, I saw someone post on social media about like, oh my gosh, does anyone else just feel like when you're on your period, like you can't turn? And I was like, yes, absolutely. I feel that way. And so I actually did some research because I was curious if there was a real biological reality to this. And there is. A doctor at Yale did a study about how when we're menstruating and our estrogen levels are higher, it actually affects our balance. And so it is harder to turn when you're on your period.
There it is. It's not that we're looking for excuses, but
it's a real thing.
You need them.
It's a real thing. And yeah, and then of course too, it's like all the other, things with our periods where a lot of times because your red blood cell count is lower, you feel weaker, you feel more tired. So there's all that we kind of know and expect. But as far as the balance, like that is a real thing. So also I think sometimes it's good to know stuff like that just to give yourself grace because, most of the time, especially I think ballet dancers generally are people that are hard on themselves. It's like it's a very disciplined art form. And so I think it's something that we all need to just keep in mind and be nice to ourselves.
Definitely. Definitely. So just to have a quick sum up of what happened today in this episode is we talked about the fundamentals of turns. We need to think about body alignment, supporting leg, strong ankles, the coordination of your arms, thinking about engaging your core, After that, we have spotting. After we added that spotting, we need to think of doing a quick checklist. After everything is done, don't forget also that breathing, the control of your breathing can dictate how you do your pirouettes as well. If you control them or you just go down because you didn't hold, because you didn't breathe and control. Yeah?
Yeah, and I think, hopefully this helps people because turns can be such a fun thing. And I think the better you get at them, the more fun they become. So I think just pushing through, if you're kind of the beginning of your journey and turns are just feeling really overwhelming and frustrating right now, not giving up, pushing through with your practice, not shying away from kind of doing the more tedious and sometimes boring work of really breaking it down into the smaller steps, because that's how you're going to eventually get to the place where you're turning and you're really enjoying it and having a lot of fun.
And if you do any of your checklist or visualizing, or you want to tag us in social media, do that. I would love to look at all your pirouettes, all your turns.
Yeah, that would be really fun because it's a journey, but you're not alone. You stick with it, you'll get there. So just don't give up. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. We really hope it was helpful, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you for listening to After Class with Ballet for All.
Join the community on YouTube and Instagram, or come dance with us, our weekly Zoom classes for adult ballerinas like you.
Links included in the episode description. Special thank you to our sponsors.
See you next time after class. Podcast produced by Mission Bridge Media.